Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead of them and their companies. I'm your host, Olivia Sammons, and in each episode, we'll uncover the stories behind successful startups, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future expansion. Today, we're excited to have Anna Maria Lee, the founder of Gachi Marketing, joining us. Anna will be sharing more about her founding story and giving us a glimpse into plans for future growth. So let's jump straight in. Anna, welcome to Founders Future.
Hi, Olivia. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure having you here. So can you take us back to the beginning, back to the start? What specific problem inspired you to start Catchy Marketing?
Sure. So before I started my own marketing consultancy, my career's been shaped a lot by the fast-paced world of high growth stage startups. I spent a good chunk of time leading marketing teams in New York City, mostly in the HR and data intelligence industries. And what really got me excited was like figuring out how to tie marketing directly to the bigger business goals and not just chasing leads, but actually building something that drives real, like sustainable growth. Then, about 5 years ago, during COVID, my husband and I made a big life change. We left New York City and moved to Portland, Maine. And we were very fortunate to be able to bring our remote tech jobs with us and really gave me the space to rethink what I wanted really in my career. And a couple of years into doing what I was doing after the move, one thing I saw repeatedly was that like smaller to mid-sized companies or startups struggle to get senior level marketing leadership. They either couldn't afford a full-time hire or were stuck in a cycle of executing tactics without really a clear strategy in mind. So I really wanted to bridge that gap. And I knew these businesses could seriously benefit from someone who could jump in and get a lay of the land and actually build a clear plan for them. And they didn't just need someone to run campaigns, and they needed more of a strategic partner who could connect the dots between marketing and the bigger business goals in like in a holistic way and figure out what to really focus on and set up something that could actually scale. And that's what really led me to start my own consultancy, Kachi Marketing. So the name Gachi, which spells Gachi, comes from a Korean word that actually carries two meanings. And the first one is together, and the other is like worth or value. And that really deeply
Love
resonated
that.
with me. Yeah, it's a unique word. It spells actually differently in Korean, but it's pronounced the same way. And it like really deeply resonated with me because my approach to like marketing in general is all about collaboration, right? So I really wanted to see, I want to work alongside companies to uncover their challenges and refine their brand and elevate their goals. So ultimately, we are positioning ourselves as we specialize in tailored marketing solutions for SMBs and early stage startups.
Awesome. It sounds amazing. So walk us through a little bit about your offer evaluation for all the listeners that maybe aren't familiar with Catchy, and how has what you sell and who you sell to changed since you started?
Yeah, starting my own businesses as a solopreneur came with a lot of unknowns, right? Like not just the logistics of launching something, but also figuring out what people actually needed. And I had the experience and I knew that I had the skills, but turning that into a real consulting business meant I had to really start to find the spots where I could add the most value. So one of the smartest thing that I did early on was doing a listening tour, actually. And instead of jumping straight into pitching services, I focused on having like real conversations with like executives, the founders, and like other folks in the similar industry in this space. And they were very super like open-ended at the end of the day. And honestly, it was such a game changer for me. Not only did it lead to like actual work, but it gave me way more clarity around the problems like the business were really facing. And what kept coming up was that a lot of early stage companies didn't have any real marketing leadership. They weren't just looking for someone to run like ads or like write emails. Like they really needed someone to come in and lay that groundwork, as I mentioned earlier, and make sure that
Okay.
marketing actually aligned with the rest of the overall like company strategic goals. And that realization like really shaped the whole direction for Kachi marketing.
Awesome. So it's really aligning with the core values of each company that you collaborate with and work with, and then pushing them out there so they're getting their message across very clearly.
Correct.
Awesome. Now, you did mention before, obviously, you have a background for marketing and you in New York. So how did that experience influence your approach?
Great question. So, because I worked at like smaller startups, like I wore many different hats at the end of the day, and I worked across with different departments with product, sales, engineering team, and design. And I think that allowed me to think differently in terms of approaching marketing holistically. So, instead of being in a vacuum necessarily, I wanted to be really understanding the whole system. Like, how do we work together as a whole and cohesively approaching what are some of the alignment that we could actually achieve so that we're not like in a silo necessarily, but actually creating that harmony, having more of that leadership conversations and rolling it up to more of the overall company goals that actually trickles down to the department goals and the functional goals.
Awesome. So when you say holistic approach, I'm assuming it's a natural and more of a well-being approach towards marketing. Am I correct in assuming that?
That's correct. So like instead
Yeah,
of
awesome.
staying on just marketing strategy, like how am I going to generate leads today or for this specific campaign? I really wanted to know, okay, what are some of the product that's coming out, or what is like the sales motion, so that we have the holistic like alignment in terms of that, so
Love
that not
it.
basically what we're rolling out from the marketing perspective is supporting some of these other goals of the other departments as well.
Awesome. Now, many founders face a moment where they almost gave up. Did you have one, and how did you push through that?
Oh man, I definitely had that type of failure moments. The first year of running my own business was a roller coaster. So I went from having a structure, predictable corporate job to wearing like every hat. So like I was doing sales, marketing, operations, and finance. And there were definitely moments when I thought, oh my gosh, am I really cut out for this? But what got me through was starting to build a good network and being intentional about building specific relationships. So instead of just chasing projects, I focused on connecting with people, like learning from others and positioning myself as a valuable resource to them. And that led to referrals and collaborations, and ultimately, in my opinion, a little bit more of a sustainable business model.
Awesome. Yeah, referrals are a big one that comes up a lot when I'm speaking with founders, and I'm sure a lot of listeners can refer to because it is the backbone sometimes of a business and how you get yourself moving forward. So that's great to hear that you found success in that avenue. So can you walk us through a little bit how your business generates revenue today, and then what is your core offer and pricing module?
Yeah, so, right now we are doing more of like primarily offering fractional CMO services, like strategic consulting and project-based engagements. I typically work on a retainer basis for ongoing leadership roles and a fixed project fee for more defined deliverables.
Awesome. And how are you currently acquiring customers? Obviously, we mentioned and we touched on the referral process at the start of that, but how has that changed and what channels and methods are you using that are found most effective?
So I think in terms of the sales and marketing approaches for Gachi Marketing, I think we have to take a one step back and then actually think about we have to recognize like first and foremost that like one of the biggest challenges in the consulting and fractional leadership space is like standing out from the crowd, right? There
Right.
are a lot of skilled consultants out there. So the key is positioning and getting crystal clear on how you differentiate yourself and the unique value you bring to the table. So that's why I always recommend to others, like what I did for myself, run your own brand strategy exercises. So I is essentially what I did was like I took the same strategic approach that I would offer my clients and applied it to Kachi marketing, which is taking a step back, as I mentioned, and investing time early on to define my unique brand positioning, what will be my go-to-market strategy, and some of the long-term goals. And without that clear strategy, it's really easy to get lost in the noise. So as an example, like I sat down and then really thought through like my messaging and positioning. I came up with five core values, right, for my company. So, as an example, like, we are curious, we celebrate the journey, and we respect and trust each other. And we are very customer oriented and we embrace the differences. And those are the five core values that I've set for myself and for my company. And that really is steering the right direction, hopefully, when it comes to like sales and marketing, like for those approaches for like myself and my company. And ultimately, in terms of the long-term goal, like I would love to like scale beyond myself, like figuring out the right way to grow without losing that hands-on high touch approach that really makes my work
Hmm.
active.
Yeah, 100%. So what does that sales and marketing process look like for you? You obviously mentioned you wore many hats to start with. How is that working at the moment?
Yeah, it starts with typically a discovery call to better understand the company's challenges and goals. And from there, I put together more of a customized proposal because no one size does not fit all. So outlining like the key areas that I would focus on, and I could definitely benefit, the company could benefit from my services and my expertise and leadership. So I always make sure it's like a two-way fit at the end of the day. It's two-way street. I am evaluating the client as well. I definitely want to work with companies that are ready to invest in marketing strategically and not just looking for like quick band-aid fixes.
Nice. So, as you said, many hats and you're still wearing them and pushing it through, but then at the same time, keeping the streamline of your brand. You only want to work with people that suit you and are ready to move forward, is what I'm understanding, which is a great
Mhm.
aspect. What would you say is the biggest bottleneck in growth right now? Is that lead generation? Is that sales conversion, fulfillment capacity, or would you say something else?
Like right now, as I'm sure you are bombarded with the news every day, the reality is that
Hmm.
we're in such an uncertain economic climate and the market is signaling a slowdown and companies are tightening their belts more than ever that I've seen. And when that happens, I feel like businesses start to scrutinize their budgets and start to decide where to cut and where to invest. And for consultants and fractional leaders like myself, this shift could potentially go one of two ways. Like the first is companies may lean on us even more because they realize
Hmm.
they'll need strategic leadership, but without the overhead of a full-time hire. Or secondly, companies might significantly scale back on external support and making it tougher to find opportunities for us. But one thing that I always emphasize to leadership teams or the folks that I talk to who are contemplating cutting marketing is essentially this. Yes, there are areas to trim. There might be advertising costs or non-essential tools you may have to get rid of, but don't make the mistake of thinking you can like just cut marketing entirely. And to me, and I'm sure from a lot of like leadership who've gotten the benefit of marketing, is that marketing isn't just a cost center, it's really a growth driver. And when done right, it really creates that long-term value that goes beyond immediate lead generation. So having that cohesive strategic foundation in place is what really allows businesses to like weather this economic downturn. And then to me, I feel like when you do carry out that strategic insight throughout, you will come out of it stronger. So I think that will be the bottleneck that we can't really control, right? This economic downturn, but like how we can weather that storm by working with folks and the companies that actually value marketing and marketing doing its work, right? Marketing at its core, ensure that your company stays relevant, your customers stay engaged. And by the time, hopefully, fingers crossed, when the market turns back around, you're not necessarily starting from scratch.
Yeah, 100%. It's, as you say, it's a mistake that a lot of people make when cutting and when they're going through difficult times as well, that is going to naturally affect other consultants, marketers like yourself, and it's something that we all have to push through and huddle through together sometimes. If you had to identify one thing that, if solved, would make the biggest impact on your business growth, what would that be?
Yeah. I talked about this, like probably scaling beyond myself and figuring out
Yeah.
like how what the right way to grow without like losing that hands-on approach, I think would be one thing that I'm trying to solve and make more of an impact for my business growth.
Yeah, 100%. I suppose you can only be in the terms of insurers how you are, but then it makes complete sense at the same time. So, what are the top priorities of growth? What does that look like for you? And where do you see yourself going over the next 12 months?
I definitely want to look into expanding my offerings, like potentially bringing on additional strategic partners in-house to take on more projects while maintaining that quality. Like right now, because I'm doing a lot on my by myself, which is exciting and it's a great learning experience as well. But I would love to invest in a team to support that execution part so I can focus a little bit more on strategy and thought leadership.
Yeah, 100%. That's what there's only one of you and you can only go so far. So that
Right.
makes complete sense in growth when you need to put your trust in other people. Do you have any specific kind of revenue targets that you're aiming for? Or what do you see as a key driver in reaching those numbers?
So I do have a broad number, obviously, a revenue target in mind, but the key drivers for me is more in terms of increasing retainer clients and optimizing my sales process. And I think
Yeah,
that's where I think would aid the revenue growth that I would ultimately like to achieve. But for now, I think just making sure that I can optimize that sales process and optimizing being able to be in front of the right people at the right time and being able to increase those retainer clients. And again, because the services that I offer tends to be more like being plugged into the company and working with the rest of the team in a longer period of time. It's not just a project deliverable necessarily. So I would love to
100%.
ensure that, yes, like I would love to like solidify that engine, so to speak.
Yeah, 100%. I hear what you're saying and where you're coming from again. All relates back to you need to be doing what you're doing best to see the company reach its full potential. So let's go hypothetically for the next question. If you had unlimited resources, what would you implement or would you change immediately to accelerate the growth?
Oh man, it's that ultimately. I think investing in this team that I could really build out for to do like more of an execution stuff.
Yeah,
Right now, I do get some inquiries around not only just building out brand strategy and messaging, but also building out more of the marketing operations part of the stuff. So like people who might be able to do more like email marketing and content building and thought leadership because I worked at smaller startups where I managed all those different like divisions and smaller teams capacity, I would love to have a little bit more of that role and an internal capacity to be able to go in as like a collective in a way to provide these services for companies that need more of the strategic support.
yeah, awesome. And yeah, as you say, drawing on the experience that you had from before with all those startups and implementing that as another string to your bow. So as you see the industry evolving, and we did touch on obviously external factors into this, but as you see that evolving in the coming years, how do you see Gachi positioned in itself in the future?
Yeah, I think marketing is becoming much more data driven, personalized, and with the introductions of artificial intelligence, there's a lot of unknowns that we're navigating, but I would love to make sure that companies are like realize educating the other companies that they're realizing that marketing is just a lead gen function, but it's a core driver for the business growth, right? So I want to position Kachi to help companies navigate that shift from not having a marketing engine at all to really start to build that marketing engine from scratch that actually works for that stage of that company. Because as I mentioned, not all the strategy that worked for company A would necessarily work for company B. So this is where I would like to, and where I excel in, and working with other leadership teams or within the founders and the C-suite folks to make sure that, hey, what is your ultimate goal in the next year to 5 years? And then building out more of the marketing function that fits that business goals and model.
Yeah, I love it. So like the personalization approach that makes you different to the mundane that most people are offering, it sounds incredible. And I think
Mhm.
it's definitely something to look forward to in the future. So what is currently preventing you from scaling that bit faster and how are you addressing those challenges at the moment?
Capacity. I think just refining my processes to streamline client work and make scaling more efficient. But
Mm,
I think it just goes back to the point that being a solopreneur is extremely exciting and rewarding. And I've seen such like big growth personally and professionally since I started doing my own consulting. But yes, there is the factor of the prioritization that needs to go in, the time, the finite time that you have. So doing that balancing act to make sure that you are dedicating your energy and efforts into the right areas of things. So yeah, I guess it just goes back to that capacity part is preventing me from scaling faster.
yeah, 100%. We're going around full circle again. You need to be putting the efforts where you provide them best. So just to switch it up for the end, we'll go into a bit of a lightning round. So what's one tool or resource that has been a big game changer in Gachi at the moment?
Yeah, I think this is a cliched answer, but I'm going to go for it again. Honestly, LinkedIn has been huge for networking and client acquisition. But another thing that has been helpful for me in a local, like Portland, Maine community is more of a local Slack communities actually have been helpful. There is an
Nice.
emerging tech kind of Slack community who are interested in product, engineering, design, marketing. So a lot of people are doing that introductions and finding collaborative opportunities, not only for networking purposes, but they might be looking for co-founders, they might be looking for marketing leadership. So there's that type of more localized, hyper-focused opportunity through local Slack communities that I highly recommend for other folks who might be looking for that type of more localized opportunities.
Yeah, I love that. Community is key sometimes, especially when, as you're saying, in finding the right people that you want to work with and go from there. There's nothing better than a community behind you that can
Mhm.
help you find them and achieve them. So, what's the best piece of advice that you've received about scaling a business?
I think like you don't have to do everything at once. Like focus on what moves the needle. There's a tendency for us to multitask and wear a lot of hats and just go for it. But honestly, conserve some of your energy. Like this goes back to the prioritization part. So you don't have to do everything at once, but focus on what moves the needle was a good advice that I received.
Love that. Focus on what moves the needle. I've never heard that saying before, but we
Hmm.
understand it. I really love that. So, what advice would you give to any founders who are listening who are just starting at their journey?
Yeah, I think trust your instincts and celebrate your big or small wins, but also take the time to build relationships and position yourself strategically. Know what you can actually offer to the market or to the community. Because to me, I feel like opportunities come from trust and credibility and not just from having a good pitch.
100%. Also, amazing. So that is a wrap on another inspiring episode of Founders Future. I want to thank Anna for sharing her incredible journey and insight with us today. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to Founders Future via wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. You can also find more resources and insights at closers.io, where we're dedicated to helping businesses accelerate their sales and marketing efforts through world-class systems and playbooks. Until then, keep climbing, and we will see you on the next one.